Welcome to Thriller Recapped. Today, I will show you an American political thriller film called Conspiracy Theory. Spoilers ahead, watch out and take care. The movie kicks off in New York City's one bright lit evening. Jerry Fletcher, a taxi driver, speaks with different passengers as he goes on talking about his crazy theories. He wanders around the city until he spots a young man who calls out for a taxi. Jerry parks his taxi to pick him. As he enters the car, he lets out a deep sigh. Jerry then opens up that it's the sound of love. The man argues that love is fake and asks Jerry if he was in love before. Jerry shares that he was and that he didn't have the opportunity to tell her, due to his problem. Jerry hits the brakes as some worker welds on something on the road. He stares into the bright welding spark and goes into some sort of trance. Next, he regains consciousness while the passenger screams in panic, because Jerry went into the opposite side of road. He almost hits multiple cars and fortunately drives safely into an alley. He stops and apologizes to his passenger. Meanwhile, the passenger curses at Jerry before leaving the money. After the young man took off, Jerry rests his head at the steering wheel trying to catch his breath. In next scene, Jerry stalks Alice Sutton, a lawyer working for the Department of Justice. He's been following her for as long as he can remember. He sees that Alice is exercising and appears to be singing something, so Jerry tries to change the radio station to hear out on what she's listening to. A few radio stations later, he hears Frankie Valli's "Can't Take My Eyes Off You" and it matches Alice's lips, and he sings with her from a distance. Later, he climbs through the fire escape and enters the building. It appears to be his apartment. Jerry takes a toothpick from the top of the door, the same place he left it earlier that day. After entering his apartment, he secures all 4 door locks and balances a bottle on top of the doorknob for good measure. He is craving for food and opens the combination of lock on his refrigerator. He's so paranoid that even his food inside his fridge is kept locked. Anyways, he grabs a container labeled tapioca and proceeds to eat it as he skims through the day's paper. He highlights important events and cuts out some pages. After that, he begins to publish an article for his newsletter, Conspiracy Theory. The next day, he sends out the article into different post boxes throughout the city. Afterwards, he visits the Department of Justice in New York. It turns out he's been there many times, since the security guards know him by name. 2 of the guards ask Jerry if he has an appointment and he jokingly replies with a lie. Next, Mr. Wilson, Alice Sutton's boss, arrives and discusses with Alice that they can't reopen Ezekiel Walter's case. Ezekiel Walter currently serves a life sentence for bombing a bank. Suddenly, Jerry gets into Alice's office making a scene. A guard tries to stop him. 2 security guards grab him and try to escort him out. On their way out, Alice calls the attention of the guards and informs them that she'll handle it, asking Jerry to make an appointment next time. On the way to her office, Jerry blabbers on some weird conspiracy involving weapons that causes an earthquake and the president's supposed assassination. Alice rides along with it. Moments later, Jerry tries to ask her out on a date, and she declines it straight up. Later that day, Jerry spots a suspicious man. He follows them all the way to the building they enter. He scans through the building directory and discovers that CIA has an office in the same building. Meanwhile, an employee monitoring the CCTV spots Jerry. He then informs his boss that Jerry's in the building. While grabbing some food at a cafe, suddenly a team of CIA agents grabs him and shoves him into a black van. In the next scene, Jerry arrives in an unknown location. He's securely strapped in a wheelchair with duct tape. Then spooks put a tape on his eyelids to keep him from closing his eyes. A few seconds later, a bald man wearing glasses appears in front of him. He can't see the man's face due to blaring light. The bald man then states in his deep voice that they have been looking for Jerry for a long time. He then proceeds to interrogate Jerry. The man asks Jerry to whom has he been talking. Not sure what that meant, Jerry replies honestly. The bald man then prepares an injection that he describes as gravy for the brain, also known as LSD. Jerry begs him to stop, but the man ignores him and injects him. Afterwards, Jerry starts feeling the effects of LSD injected into him and he starts to hallucinate. As Jerry screams his lungs out, the bald man drowns Jerry to shut him up. After a minute, he brings Jerry up and makes the mistake of bringing his face close to Jerry's. A loaded Jerry bites him hard on the nose. The bald man screams in pain and screams even louder as Jerry kicks him in the balls. Afterwards, Jerry walks out of the room while still bound to the wheelchair saying some random stuff due to LSD. He then tries to escape through the stairs. At the same time, an agent shows up and the momentum causes the agent to get kicked out of the window. With his back on the stairs going down, he accidentally bumps on the second spook, and they both fall down the stairs. This causes Jerry to break free, while the other agent passes out. Jerry then discovers a debris piercing through his stomach, but he goes on to escape the site. On the same day, as Alice exits the elevator, she sees an injured Jerry screaming out to her, while two guards drag him. Out of nowhere, Jerry pulls out a pistol from one of the guards, which causes a chaos among the people there. Alice acts quick and tries to calm him down. Jerry informs her that he bit someone's nose off, but without clear context it creates further confusion. Eventually, Alice was able to calm him down. As he drops the gun, guards tackle and hold him down. Alice orders them to take it easy and call an ambulance. Later at the hospital, a doctor escorts her to Jerry, who's this time strapped to a hospital bed. Jerry is drugged and he asks Alice to switch the charts with the other patient next to him or he will be dead by next morning. The next day, Alice visits the same hospital and sees a man covered in a white sheet indicating that he's dead. Alice runs towards the body, uncovers the sheet, and she is relieved to find that it was the patient next to Jerry. The police guarding the door informs her that some CIA and FBI agent wants to see her downstairs. She checks Jerry first before meeting with them. After a brief talk with Jerry, Alice meets an FBI agent named Lowry. Agent Lowry escorts Alice to the morgue where people inspect the body, thinking it was Jerry. There she meets Dr. Jonas, introduced as a CIA psychologist. The CIA shrink has a bandage on his nose. Back in the hospital room, doctors are rushing as Jerry fakes a heart attack. Next, Dr. Jonas walks alongside Alice on the way to a room, and he tells her that a dog bit his nose, hence the bandage. Jerry escapes just as Dr. Jonas and the others arrive. Later, with Alice's help, Jerry gets away disguised as a doctor. After a series of events, Alice ends up in Jerry's apartment. Aside from all the weird stuff in his apartment, she's astonished by the fact that the conspiracy nut has an interest in horses, just like her, and he also sketches them beautifully. She also discovers that Jerry has loads of collections of the same book that she likes. Moments later, spooks try to picklock Jerry's apartment and the bottle falls and it breaks. At the same time, a CIA agent radios his pals on the other building, and they fire tear gas through the apartment windows. Jerry immediately springs to action. He activates a device that causes a fire, then he leads Alice to his bedroom. Seconds later, the spooks by the door attempt to break it down by using a ram. Jerry then moves the bedside table, and it reveals an escape door. The chaos, smoke from the grenades, and fire caused by the device that Jerry activated earlier provide ample cover for them to escape through the hidden latch. On the way out, Alice discovers a wall painting of her during her polo days. Jerry then disguises himself as a fireman, and successfully gets out undetected while carrying Alice by his shoulders. She confronts him about the painting after arriving at her place. She rages up and kicks him out after discovering that Jerry has been stalking her for a while. Later that night, Agent Lowry's partner takes a piece, and moments later he gets back in the vehicle. It turns out it wasn't his partner who gets in the back but Jerry. Jerry then pulls a pistol on Agent Lowry at the back of his head. Agent Lowry pretends to pass out after receiving a smashing, but Jerry isn't tricked and bangs his head again. This time, Agent Lowry is knocked out. While CIA continues its relentless pursuit to capture Jerry, and most of the time he manages to slip out. He then meets up with Alice on a bus, and later on a subway. In the moment of heat, Jerry tells Alice that he loves her and tries to express his feelings awkwardly. Alice calmly denies his feelings for her, and it devastates Jerry. He boards the train immediately while Alice tries to catch up. But she's too late, the door closes and the train runs to the next station. Later, Alice tracks one of Jerry's newsletter subscribers, and it turns out it is Dr. Jonas. He reveals to Alice that he used to work for the CIA on a top-secret program called MKUltra. Basically, the program brainwashes and trains people to be an assassin. Although the program was terminated in 1973, Dr. Jonas continued with the research. The procedure involves different unethical methods and Jerry was one of the subjects experimented on. Dr. Jonas further reveals that the technology was stolen and was used in the private sectors for their own agenda. He wants to find Jerry so that he can trace who used Jerry. Next, he shows a photo to Alice that belonged to her late father and tells her that it was found in Jerry's safe deposit box, and that it was Jerry who killed her father. Soon, Jerry contacts Alice by sending a letter through pizza delivery. Given the newfound info, Alice agrees to help and work with the CIA in capturing him. They place a tracking and recording device on the pizza. However, Jerry outsmarts CIA and evades them once again. He soon brings Alice to the place where her dad died. Unable to contain her anger, she attacks Jerry and demands to tell her what happened. Jerry tries to recall his foggy memories. He admits that he tried to kill her father, but he couldn't pull the trigger. Sooner, he became friends with her father, thinking that Dr. Jonas might send another assassin to kill Alice's father. Jerry rebelled and made an effort on keeping her father safe. Ultimately, he failed and another attempt took her father's life, but before he died, her father gave him a picture, the same picture that Dr. Jonas showed to Alice earlier. And the old man asked Jerry to watch over her daughter before he died, and Jerry did just that ever since. Jerry reveals that Ezekiel Walter is the fall guy, and since Alice's father wanted to reopen the case, Dr. Jonas had him killed. Alice connects the dots, believes Jerry, and hugs him tight. Afterwards, a helicopter flies over and agents surround the perimeter. Before being captured, Alice also reveals that she did switch the charts back at the hospital, because she likes him. The spooks force Jerry into the helicopter. After the helicopter flies off, an agent kills Mr. Wilson. Fortunately, Alice escapes into the woods successfully. Having escaped, Alice brings Lowry to the office where she met Jonas. She then forces him at gunpoint to admit that he is not from the FBI, but from a secret agency that watches over other agencies. He reveals that they have been using the unwitting Jerry to uncover and stop Jonas. Alice then goes to the site looking for Jerry, and she sees a mental hospital next door. There she hears, and talks to Jerry through a vent. And an attendant she had bribed guides her to an unused wing. She breaks in and finds Jerry. Then Jonas catches the lovebirds at gunpoint, and Lowry arrives with his men. The alarm goes off and Dr. Jonas instructs other goons to go help in delaying the intruders, and Lowry's team attacks Jonas's men. With Dr. Jonas left in the room, it gives them the opportunity to fight back. Alice charges at Dr. Jonas, but he just moves to the side and hits her at the back. Jerry attempts to drown Jonas, but he is shot by Jonas from underwater. Alice, who regains consciousness after being knocked out, then shoots Jonas 6 times. After killing Jonas, she tells Jerry that she loves him, before he is taken away in an ambulance as he fights for his life. Sometime later, a grieving Alice visits Jerry's grave, and leaves a pin that he had given her. She returns to riding her horse, that she had stopped riding after her father's murder. While watching Alice from a car with Lowry, Jerry keeps to his agreement to not contact her, until all of Jonas's other subjects are caught. As they drive away singing "Can't Take My Eyes Off You," Alice finds the pin she had left at Jerry's grave attached to her saddle, and she smiles as she continues riding, now knowing he is alive. And the movie ends. I will post a link to one more Project MK Ultra movie on the top right corner. Please like and subscribe, it really helps the channel grow.